Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. 3 years and 3 years, I have become the 5th Emperor. Chapter 21. Momosegi's jaw hit the ground. Chen Yi is now in a crushing state against the veteran emperor. You must know that 2 years ago, when Chen Yi faced the ant, even with the help of Fujitora, it took a lot of effort to hit the ant's face. In this way, although Chen Yi's battle with his ant established his status as the 5 emperors, it also made Chen Yi lie down for almost 2 months. Now facing Kaido, who is also one of the 5 emperors, Chen Yi actually has a clear upper hand. How fast is his strength improving? Enel, who was next to Momosegi at this time, glanced at Momosegi and curled his lips. No matter how powerful Chen Yi is, he thinks it is normal. Not to mention how powerful this guy is, his understanding and use of power are improving almost every day. The first time he met this guy on Sky Island, it took Chen Yi almost half an hour to completely defeat him. But later, when he was bored enough to challenge Chen Yi again, Chen Yi could immobilize him within 5 minutes. This has been almost less than a year. Enel knew very well in his heart that Chen Yi was not serious at all when he was fighting him, it was just a joke. Otherwise, when Chen Yi used his strongest move, the finger knife, he, Enel, would have died suddenly on the spot. So what about the powerful Logia fruit? In front of Chen Yi, he was no different from a new little pirate. I heard that Kaido eats dragon fruit. It sounds very powerful, but I don't think it will cause any waves in front of Chen Yi. Enel said to Momosegi. At first glance, you can tell that you don't know much about Chen Yi. His strength is as high as Sky Island. These guys on the sea cannot fight with him. Even if it's Kaido, I'm afraid he doesn't need to go all out. Speaking of this, Enel glanced at Momosegi and said with a strange expression. Thankfully he still likes you, you don't understand him at all. After saying that, Enel shook his head, put his hands behind his head, and began to admire Kaido's bloody figure in the sky. Having such a powerful and invincible boss seems to be a good thing. At this time, Momosegi, who was beside Enel, felt that the shock in his heart had been pushed aside by another complicated emotion. Fortunately he still likes you. Momosegi froze as if he had been hit in the heart by a sledgehammer. Chen Yi, like her. She never thought this would happen. She naturally has very special feelings for Chen Yi. A few years ago, when the two were hunted down by one of Bigmom's 4 generals, they escaped together for a month. At that time, if she or Chen Yi were hunted down alone, it would be impossible to survive. That time, it was the 2 of them who joined forces to survive. And they killed the candy star who had been hunting them for a month. In this month, Momosegi was deeply impressed by Chen Yi's domineering, smart, tenacious, optimistic and decisive attitude. If every excellent quality is a star, then Chen Yi is undoubtedly the brightest and deepest star in the sky. Returning to Momosegi at naval headquarters, there is not a day that goes by that Chen Yi doesn't pop up in his mind. She had to admit that she had fallen hopelessly in love with Chen Yi. Sunny and strong, sometimes gentle and sometimes domineering, always full of confidence. Even in the most difficult situations, she can remain optimistic and can always solve problems in the most resourceful way. No woman can resist such charm. But he is a pirate. And she is Marine. He is still a child who has been raised by Marine executives since he was a child. Naval headquarters is her home. Since then, although Momosegi misses Chen Yi every day, the 2 have never seen each other again. Although Momosegi often heard news about Chen Yi at naval headquarters, her heart would hurt every time Chen Yi did something big at sea. The higher Chen Yi's bounty, the slimmer the possibility between her and Chen Yi. When Momosegi learned that Chen Yi could seriously injure Auntie and fight through the encirclement of Auntie's children, Momosegi despaired. The Emperor of the Sea, that is Marine's mortal enemy. How could she, a Marine vice admiral, be with the pirate leader? But she just heard something. Chen Yi, like her too. Momosegi was in a trance. At this moment, she wanted to give up everything and just stay by Chen Yi's side. If Momosegi, whose heart was in a tangled mess and whose eyes were blurry, suddenly had a wild fantasy in his heart. It would be nice if he was Marine. With his excellence, he might even become Marine Marshal. Momosegi lowered his head, tears falling down. All this is just her fantasy. What Momosegi doesn't know is that the man she longs for is actually Marine. It was the same Marine who fed her with shit and piss for half a year when she was little. However, Chen Yi, the Marine, has a lot of identities. Currently the biological son of Marine Marshal Sengoku. The head of the CPU, the world government's highest intelligence agency. The fifth emperor of the sea in the age of great pirates. At this time, this man with many and somewhat complicated identities was already engaged in a fierce battle with Kaido on the ground. To be more precise, it's Chen Yi's explosive hammer Kaido. Kaido, who is known as the strongest creature in the world, has an unparalleled physical strength, but in front of Chen Yi, he has been reduced to a point where he can only take a beating. Without him, Chen Yi's speed and agility can crush the big guy Kaido. At this time, the battlefield between Chen Yi and Kaido has been moved to the forest of Dressrosa Island. The terrain here is more open, which is more conducive to Chen Yi's performance. In the area where they were fighting, there were constant thunderous roars. That was the sound of Chen Yi's fist hitting Kaido. When the thunder was at its most intensive, it almost became a continuous sound, causing the people of the kingdom even far away from them to cover their ears. In the dense forest, Chen Yi once again approached Kaido head-on, and punched Kaido directly in the abdomen with a speed that could not be seen clearly. Kaido was beaten on the spot and his feet were off the ground, and his whole body turned into the shape of. With one punch, Kaido, who was originally much taller than Chen Yi, seemed to have taken the initiative to put his head in front of Chen Yi. Naturally, Chen Yi didn't hesitate. The fingers of his other hand formed into claws and he lifted it up directly, heading towards Kaido's chin. The powerful force caused Kaido's head to flatten almost 3 inches. Before Kaido could react, the arm that had previously punched Kaido grabbed Kaido's right arm with his backhand. If he doesn't catch it, his powerful power will send Kaido flying directly into the sky. Bang! Another punch hit Kaido's chest hard, and a blue punch mark suddenly appeared on Kaido's chest. Chen Yi pulled Kaido back suddenly, put his fingers together like a sword, and stabbed Kaido's shoulder hard. Phew! Chen Yi's fingers directly pierced the flesh of Kaido's shoulder. The length of half a finger has penetrated into Kaido's flesh and blood. But almost at the same time, Chen Yi felt an extremely powerful force coming from around his fingers. He instantly realized that the muscles near Kaido's wound were exerting force, trying to restrain his fingers. Not only that, Kaido had already stood firmly on the ground with one foot, raised a fist larger than an ordinary person's head, and hit Chen Yi. Noticing the rapidly approaching black shadow in his peripheral vision, Chen Yi flashed a hint of sarcasm in his eyes and raised his right hand. Boom! The huge force collision caused the surrounding air to escape crazily in all directions, and some big trees around the two people even broke directly. Chen Yi's hand directly blocked Kaido's fist, and did not allow Kaido's fist to advance even an inch. Kaido's face twitched involuntarily, as if he didn't expect such a result. At this time, Chen Yi had already retracted his other hand, still holding his fingers together with the sword, and tapped Kaido's raised arm from bottom to top. Puff! As if being pierced by an invisible sword, a penetrating wound instantly appeared on Kaido's arm. At the same time, the bones of the arm here also cracked into several pieces. This move is from the Finger Sword series, Breaking the Army. Releases a small and tough sword energy. Although the power is limited, it is unstoppable within 100 meters. The intense pain in his arm made Kaido extremely angry. He hadn't felt such severe pain in how many years it had been. "I'm going to smash your fingers," Kaido said angrily. Hearing this, the corners of Chen Yi's mouth twitched slightly, and his coherent movements were not affected by Kaido's explosion at all. He had already grabbed Kaido's injured arm with both hands. The next second, he shook his hands upward fiercely. Under Chen Yi's powerful power, Kaido barely had time to react before his body flew up. However, at this time, Chen Yi's hands still did not let go of Kaido's arms. From the beginning of the close fight between the two to the present, Chen Yi's movements have maintained unparalleled consistency, hitting Kaido hundreds of times in less than 10 seconds. Kaido, who was in the air at this moment, felt a little slow. However, this slow feeling completely disappeared in the next second. Because at the next moment, Chen Yi's arms suddenly grew larger, and the strength of the muscles in his arms exploded instantly, slamming Kaido towards the ground. Under the powerful force, Kaido's speed in the air became extremely fast, and his figure almost turned into a blurry black shadow. Such speed, if it were in the past, would have been something Kaido could only dream of. Unfortunately, the speed he achieved now was not achieved by himself, but was achieved by the enemy's power when he was beaten. This is a rare shame for Kaido. Boom! Kaido's body hit the ground with huge force at such high speed. In just an instant, a deep pit appeared on the ground. If Kaido hadn't been lying in it, some people might have thought it was caused by a falling meteorite. Chen Yi, on the other hand, had already jumped up when Kaido was about to land on the ground. At this time, Chen Yi stood on a hilltop, looked at Kaido in the pit, and smiled. Kaido, are you satisfied with this warm-up? Kara. No one responded to his words, and only the sound of rolling gravel came from the deep pit. A few seconds later, Kaido's figure walked out of the pit. There is a huge difference between Kaido now and when he first came to Dressrosa. Not only was his body covered with dirty dirt, but it was also covered with various scars. Some were fist marks, some were slaps, some were like sharp swords slipping, and some were like being hit by heavy hammers. More importantly, every feature on Kaido's face was bleeding. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Most of Chen Yi's attacks landed on Kaido's head. The blood flowing from these organs, coupled with the two horns on Kaido's head, make him look like a demon walking out of hell. However, these injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye as Kaido walked out of the pit step by step. The penetrating injuries and broken bones on his arms had now recovered to the point where they were no longer visible. Noticing this, Chen Yi raised his eyebrows slightly, showing a surprised expression for the first time. The strongest creature in the world is not called it for nothing. Such a powerful recovery ability may only be possessed by Kaido. Dover said you were a fighting genius. Kaido spoke. Kaido looked in the direction of Chen Yi. He is very jealous that you have achieved the status and achievements he wanted in just 15 years. He said, Fujitora, Enel, Luo, all the people who join your command will exceed their original level in strength and will even continue to improve. All because of you. Whether it's the use of fruit abilities, swordsmanship, hockey, or taijutsu, you can let them find the fighting method that suits them best. I'm also very curious about you. I want to know what kind of guy it is that can leave a hole in that woman Linlin's face. Dover said that your understanding of combat and the use of various abilities are beyond this era. Kaido stood there with his hands on his hips and continued. You are indeed strong. However, he is not worthy of the title of Fifth Emperor. You know nothing about the terror of the Sea Emperor. Kaido twisted his neck and said, join me, or die. Hearing this, Chen Yi laughed unabashedly. It would be correct to say that 2 years ago, he did not have the strength to truly deserve the title of Emperor of the Sea. At that time, he worked hard and with Fujitora's cooperation, he was able to stab the ant in the face. However, he is really a fighting genius. A true genius. On the day he went to sea 15 years ago, he only watched others fight and never learned a single move. His ideal is not this sea at all. Just be strong because you want to be strong. In 13 years, he grew up to fight against the 4 emperors. Now 2 years have passed, and now he is the strongest. Chen Yi laughed for a full minute before shaking his head with a smile and said, I know you like to have little brothers, but I didn't expect that you would receive them from me. Do you think you can still use your strongest creature's personality to scare me? The attack just now did not cause any substantial harm to you, which was indeed beyond my expectation. But, the smile on Chen Yi's face gradually faded, and his eyes became sharp. I only used less than 20% of my strength. Kaido. I only used less than 20% of my strength, Kaido. Hearing this, Kaido's eyes were a little surprised. Although he knew that Chen Yi did not go all out, otherwise he would not be able to recover in such a short time with an attack that could leave unhealable wounds on Charlotte Linlin's face. But he didn't expect that Chen Yi would use less than 20% of his power. But the next second, Kaido shook his head. He didn't believe what Chen Yi said. If the battle like that just now only required Chen Yi to exert his strength twice, then I am afraid that Chen Yi can be regarded as the strongest person in the sea. And he is the strongest one far beyond other emperors. In 2 years, from barely being able to tie with Big Mom, to far surpassing all the sea emperors. Kaido doesn't believe anyone can do it. The stronger you are, the harder it is to continue to improve your strength. Even if Chen Yi is recognized as a combat genius in the sea, it is impossible to do this. It's not the nature of the Sea Emperor to talk big words, Kaido said. While speaking, Kaido took off his cloak. Boom. The cloak was thrown to the ground with a loud bang. Next, Kaido's waist and wrist guards were thrown to the ground one by one. Every pendant thrown by Kaido on the ground will cause the forest to shake. Soon, Kaido no longer had any accessories on his body except a pair of pants. On the other side of the island, Enel, who felt this scene through observation haki, had some changes in his expression. This guy has been carrying so much weight. Momoshiki next to him didn't understand. He turned his head and looked at Enel in confusion. Enel did not explain anything in detail, he just said, "Kaido, get serious." Hearing this, Momoshiki's expression also changed. Was the fierce fighting just now just a warm-up? At this moment, Momoshiki couldn't help but think of something Chen Yi once said to himself. Under the Emperor, everyone is just an ant. Boom. Kaido, who had taken off his weight, exploded with unparalleled speed. The moment he started sprinting towards Chen Yi, a loud sonic boom erupted in the air. In an instant, the big tree between where Kaido was standing and Chen Yi was completely cut off. In the process of rushing towards Chen Yi, Kaido didn't even bother to avoid these big trees and directly broke them. These seemingly extremely strong trees could not have any impact on his speed and posture in the face of his powerful body. Kaido's current speed has far exceeded his previous limit. However, Chen Yi remained calm. "That's all, Kaido, it's still too slow." While speaking, Chen Yi punched in front of him. The island shook again, and Kaido's figure was forced out by Chen Yi. However, Kaido seemed to have anticipated this scene, and whipped his leg towards Chen Yi's waist. Kaido, who had removed the weight, was already moving as fast as he could for his size. However, his whip leg swept past Chen Yi, but he didn't feel any obstruction. It's just an afterimage of Chen Yi. Chen Yi's real figure has arrived behind Kaido. This time, it's the five-finger knife sword stance. Straight into Kaido's back. Become a dragon, Kaido. When it comes to physical skills, you can't do it. Just when Chen Yi and Kaido were fighting, the Dressrosa Sea area, the island where Luo and Doflamingo fought, had now undergone earth-shaking changes. On this small island, the two battlefields have merged together. Law and Doflamingo's battlefield, Fujitora and the battlefield of drought and epidemic. At this time, Luo was seriously injured and could not stand up. If it weren't for Fujitora's support, Law would have fallen to the ground. As for Doflamingo, Luo's target, it looks even more miserable. One of his arms has been separated from his body. Luo's strength far exceeded his expectations. It was precisely because they felt that the situation in Dover was not good that Drought and Epidemic took the initiative to merge the battlefields. Otherwise, Dover might die. However, Drought and Epidemic, two big pirates with bounties of over 1 billion under Kaido, were not much better. The two tusks of Jack the Drow have all been broken off. Plague Quinn maintains the form of a Brachiosaurus, but the dragon's long neck seems to have been broken by someone and bent into a weird angle, which cannot be restored temporarily. The Drought and Epidemic at this time kept Doflamingo behind him, and he looked at Fujitora with extremely solemn eyes. They really underestimated the blind man in front of them. But who would have thought that this guy's use of the Gravity Fruit's ability has reached such a superb level? The two of them combined didn't even cause any serious injuries to Fujitora. They even suspected that the chubby old man in front of them might have the strength to be infinitely close to that of an emperor. But now Fujitora is not in a hurry to attack. He took out a piece of paper from his arms and read it carefully in front of him. Seeing this scene, Dover and Drought and Blight were speechless for a moment. "You are a blind man." Luo next to Fujitora also had a black line on his head and couldn't help but say, "You can't see. What are you doing here?" Hearing this, Fujitora sighed and muttered, "Young people just don't have the mood. Chen Yi is more interesting." Chen Yi said. Fujitora's voice became louder. "Even if you can't see with your eyes, you have to pretend that you can see it, so that no one will make any small moves in front of me. Because they feel guilty when they make small moves, and they can't help but wonder if I can really see it. If you feel guilty, there will be flaws." Hearing this, Luo's expression changed and he suddenly turned his head to look across. Dover, who was blocked by the huge size of the Brachiosaurus, was now quietly preparing to slip away. You three are all on the list, so. Fujitora put away the note and held the knife in his hand again. No one can run away. The moment Fujitora held the knife, the three people not far away turned around and ran away. Or a different direction. Drought and epidemic were not separated. Both of them tried their best to run towards their ship. They have all realized that if they don't run away, they may end up here. Fujitora's strength is so terrifying. If Dover was not seriously injured, the three of them might still be able to fight, but now, they can't fight. As for Doflamingo, his escape posture is much more handsome. Although Dover only had one arm left, this arm was moving like an engine, and the speed at which it hung the lines on the clouds was no slower than the previous two arms. In a very short time, he had already hung countless lines on the clouds in the sky. The next moment, Dover gathered the lines, and under the pulling force of the lines, his whole body was brought up to the sky. This is exactly the move he usually uses to rush or pursue Sky's path. It can make him look like he is jumping on the clouds. However, if there are no clouds or something to borrow strength nearby, he cannot use this move. Now, Dover leapt into the air, finally showing a relaxed expression on his face. Once in the air, that's his home turf. None of the people present had the ability to fight in the air. The only tricky thing is Fujitora's gravity fruit ability, but as long as you are far enough away from him, even Fujitora can't do anything. Luo, this time is not the end. Next time we meet, you will definitely not be able to run away. A confident smile appeared on Dover's face again. He has experienced many crisis moments, and there have been many worse ones than now. But as long as he is alive, there is always a chance to regain his place. However, as soon as he said this, Doflamingo's expression suddenly changed. The next moment, countless shells flew past him and almost hit him. Dover looked in the direction of the cannonballs, and saw that a marine warship had arrived in the sea area where they were. Standing on the deck of the marine battleship is Vice Admiral Crane. A veteran marine who was the same generation as Emperor-level powerhouses like Garp and Sengoku. Marine Grade Advisor. Seeing the Crane's appearance, Doflamingo's face turned pale. How could this person appear here? No news at all. This is his old rival. Over the years, he has suffered many losses at the hands of Vice Admiral He. Swish, swish, swish. Doflamingo didn't dare to stay, nor did he dare to say harsh words, and quickly flew towards the distance with the help of the power of the lines. Vice Admiral's marine battleship also immediately changed its direction and pursued Doflamingo in the direction he left. Seeing this scene, Trafalgar Law looked a little strange. Crane Vice Admiral, why are you here? It has been a day and a night since Chen Yi signaled him to take action yesterday. How could Marine get the news so quickly, and how could it come so quickly? However, there was no special expression on Fujitora's face, and he was just silent for a moment. Looking at Fujitora's expression, Luo was stunned for a moment, thoughtful. I'm afraid Doflamingo won't be able to escape, and I can't chase Dove with Marine at the same time, so I don't have to make a choice anymore, Fujitora said. As he spoke, he had already turned to the direction in which the drought and epidemic had fled. As for you, if you regain some strength, you can follow Doflamingo secretly without being discovered by Marine. If Doflamingo doesn't die, or doesn't fall into Marine's hands, things might be in some trouble. However, this time, the Kaido pirates may be destroyed. Hearing this, Trafalgar Law nodded and stood up. As an op fruit user, what he is best at is healing his own injuries. He didn't have time to heal himself during the previous battle, but now, just a few minutes are enough for him to take action. After saying this, Fujitora quickly chased in the direction of the drought and epidemic. At this time, the drought and epidemic had already fled to the place where they went to the island before. Their ship is still parked here. Fujitora is catching up. Hanbon looked at Fujitora behind him with a panicked look on his face. As the man with the weakest strength and the lowest bounty among the three disasters, he couldn't help but look towards the plague at this time. Epidemic looks much better. Get on the boat. Hey, this time, it's not just the two of us here. Hearing this, Hanbon was stunned for a moment, and then a burst of surprise broke out on his face. You mean, Brother Yanbon is here too? Hanbon asked hurriedly. Plague nodded his fat head. At this time, he had returned to human form, but his neck was still crooked. That's right, it's just that he is waiting on other islands. We only need to lure Fujitora there, and add Brother Yanbon, and the mission will be completed this time. This guy Fujitora has been hiding his strength all this time. The two of them did not dare to waste time and quickly boarded the ship. When the pirate ship started, they breathed a sigh of relief. That guy Fujitora dares to exert gravity in different directions on the upper and lower sections of my neck. Once we meet Brother Yanquan, I will definitely eat him. The fat plague said while holding his neck. Drought nodded in agreement. His 2 ivory tusks were chopped off by Fujitora. This man's terrifying strength was no longer hidden until his ivory was broken. However, with the combined efforts of our 3 brothers and the barbarian tyrant on that island, Fujitora is doomed. The 2 brothers happily drove the boat to the island where the disaster was located. However, what Drought and Epidemic never expected was that the inflammation in their mouths was almost chopped into mud by Eagle Eye at this time. At this time, the eldest brother Yan Disaster, who was worried about Drought and Epidemic, can be said to be extremely miserable. Originally, according to the plan, he was to stay on this small island. No matter whether the drought or epidemic succeeded or failed, he would have someone to take care of him. The location of this island is also excellent. But who would have thought that not long after he arrived here, an uninvited guest came to the island? The former world's greatest swordsman, Mihawk. The reason why Hawkeye is the former #1 in the world is because when he competed with Chen Yi in swordsmanship 3 years ago, Chen Yi broke his black sword with 1 finger. From now on, Hawkeye will never claim to be the best in the world again. Although Chen Yi has never publicized this matter. But Hawkeye is not someone who will lie to himself. Chen Yi's swordsmanship is better than him, so if he wants to return to the world's #1 position, he can only defeat Chen Yi in swordsmanship. It is precisely because of this goal that he has never owned a new sword. During the entire battle between Chen Yi and him, he never used a sword. For 3 years, he has been recreating Chen Yi's fingers. That was an extremely stunning finger in the eyes of a swordsman genius like him. Now 3 years later, although Hawkeye no longer has Black Blade Knight, his strength is even more terrifying than before. From the moment Hawkeye and Jin met, the two have been fighting for a while. Hawkeye's body was unscathed, with only a faint trace of being burned by the fire. As for Jin, his current appearance is a bit scary. Starting from the shoulder, a huge knife mark went straight to his waist. It's hard to imagine how Hawkeye, who only had a toy-like knife in his hand, could make such a horrific wound. Hawkeye, don't force me. Jin struggled to support the attack from Hawkeye, and once again received several small wounds on his body. Hawkeye completely ignored Jin's roar and continued to stab the knife in his hand without any impact. Every time he stabbed with a knife, he would carefully taste the difference between this knife and the previous one. Hawkeye completely regarded Jin as a target for sword practice. As for Jin's threat, Hawkeye only found it ridiculous. I'm going to beat you to death. If you have any ability, show it off immediately. The threat at this time is just exposing your inner panic. Seeing that Hawkeye was completely indifferent, Jin's eyes were full of despair and anger. Who would have thought that Eagle Eye would listen to Chen Yi's orders? Still possesses such great strength. Completely unexpected factor. It made him feel extremely ashamed to die in this situation. However, he couldn't escape at all. As early as 10 minutes ago, he changed into the form of a pterosaur and tried to escape. Then Hawkeye slashed at him, almost cutting him in half. The extremely terrifying wound on his body was caused at that time. If you don't want to die now, just stay down. Hawkeye said so Jin didn't dare to change into the form of a pterosaur. He knew very well that Hawkeye definitely had the strength to kill him with one strike, even if he had already managed to get some distance away. It was at this time that Jin knew that he had become the target for Hawkeye to hone his sword skills. Aggrieved, Jin felt extremely aggrieved in his heart. The top combat force under the 4 emperors, one of the 3 famous disasters in the sea, with a bounty of close to 2 billion, has now fallen to this. Now the only reason that keeps Jin going is drought and epidemics. These 2 brothers have agreed to take this line when they retreat. At the same time, he hated Doflamingo in his heart. Doflamingo, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be in this situation. Jin gritted his teeth while resisting Hawkeye's attack. Doflamingo never mentioned that Hawkeye and Chenyi have such a relationship. Who would have thought that Chenyi could mobilize so much top-notch combat power? After all, the whole thing was caused by Doflamingo. Thinking of this, Jin's hatred for Doflamingo went even deeper into his bones. Dover, if I don't die, I will tear you apart alive. Jin roared to the sky. Hawkeye was speechless and continued to adjust his swordsmanship with one blow after another. After all, it is not easy to find a high-quality sword test target like Jin. As for Jin's psychological activities, Hawkeye didn't care at all. In his eyes, Jin is already a dead person. What is there to understand about the psychological activities of dead people? However, at this time, in the sky not far from the island where Hawkeye and Jin were, Doflamingo escaped here. Suddenly, Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, and then his face looked a little strange. He felt like he heard something just now. It seems to have its own name. After hesitating for a moment, Doflamingo descended some heights and soon found a small island not far from him. Dover's expression moved slightly. Observation haki had already poured towards the island like a tide. The next second, Doflamingo changed the direction of his escape without hesitation. However, Doflamingo's expression was extremely ugly as he was escaping. He clearly sensed that Yan Calamity was almost doomed. The appearance of this guy Hawkeye was completely beyond his expectation. Chenyi's figure emerged in Doflamingo's mind, and for the first time he felt that he was not fully prepared this time. Chenyi can mobilize more high-end combat power than he and Kaido combined. Even a man like Hawkeye, who has no desires and only pursues the art of swordsmanship, can be invited by Chenyi, which is really hard for him to accept. Not only that, the combat power of Luo and Fujitora far exceeded his expectations. Although he had already made a high prediction on the combat power of these two people, he knew that their true combat power must be much stronger than what they usually displayed. But I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Too low-key. Everyone in Chenyi's pirate group is so low-key. It was because they were so low-key that he miscalculated and ended up in a mess now. Especially, if Jin is damaged in this matter this time, he will no longer have the protective umbrella of Kaido. At this time, Doflamingo suddenly woke up as if he thought of something. Kaido, if nothing else happens, I'm afraid he has already faced off against Chenyi. If Chenyi is so good at hiding his strength. Doflamingo trembled violently and did not dare to continue thinking about it. At this time in Dressrosa, the reality was exactly what Doflamingo could not have imagined. The place where Chenyi and Kaido fought was completely unrecognizable from its original appearance. At this time, Kaido was lying on the ground, motionless. There was a huge hole in his heart, with light from front to back. Even one of the horns on his head was broken off in half. If Kaido's body wasn't still rising and falling with his breathing, people might have thought he was dead. And Chenyi is now standing on Kaido's back. He also held half of Kaido's horn in his hand. Obviously, in this battle, Chenyi once again had the absolute upper hand. Of course, Chenyi at this time is no longer as calm as he was at the beginning. There was also a trace of blood left at the corner of his mouth. A hole was pierced in the abdomen by Kaido's horn. But it was precisely because of this that he was able to break Kaido's horns. The battle between the two emperors has progressed to this point, and the process is not what most people can imagine. Enel on the other side of the island did not witness the battle between Chenyi and Kaido, but his observation haki could cover the entire Sky Island, so how could he not feel the situation on Chenyi's side? At this time, Enel's face had become very serious. For the first time, he realized so clearly the power of the Sea Emperor. In this battle, the strength displayed by the two people was unimaginable. He, Enel, was already considered the top strong man in the sea, but in front of such power, he felt that he was nothing at all. Chenyi's strength is already strong enough, but what he showed in this battle was something that Chenyi never showed even when Enel challenged Chenyi many times. These two emperors have shown real fire. But while he was shocked by the strength of the two men, Enel also had a trace of doubt in his heart. The two have fought like this, but they both still have reservations. Kaido has never transformed into a dragon form until now. What on earth is he waiting for? My heart was half crushed, but it's still recovering. Kaido, your physique is really good. Chen Yi held Kaido's horns and squatted down, curiously looking at Kaido's heart. Kaido's heart was broken in half by Chen Yi from the front. But even so, Kaido's heart is still recovering and he is about to recover. But Chen Yi didn't stop him. It's already this time and you still haven't changed into a dragon. Don't tell me that you are begging for death. Chen Yi smiled and continued. The so-called desire to die is just a gimmick created by you. If you really want to die, I can provide you with 10,000 ways to die. If you want to wait for the results from the 3 disasters, then I can only tell you that it is a complete mistake for you to participate in this matter. 3 disasters, no one will survive this time. I was worried that I wouldn't have a chance to kill them. It's a good thing you came to my door. As for you, if you run away with all your strength, I might not be able to catch up with you, but after today, I'm afraid you won't be able to secure your position as emperor. I was so surprised by the gift of your head. However, who can sit in the position of emperor is a fool, especially you, who is probably the shrewdest one among the 4 emperors. Dover's excuse that I will covet your artificial devil fruit is simply not enough to make you take such a violent action. I'm curious, what is your real purpose? I guess, finding out what my strength is just one of your goals. Kaido, don't think that I will look down on you just because you are cooped up in Wano-kuni. I'm afraid you have been paying attention to me and investigating me for a long time. My rapid rise makes you uneasy and makes you feel that there is a side to this sea that you cannot understand and cannot see through. You seem to be reckless and brainless, but in your heart you have a very deep understanding of all the powerful people in the sea. Seeing Kaido still indifferently recovering his heart on the ground, Chen Yi stepped down from Kaido's body, squatted next to Kaido's head, and whispered. Have you discovered that no matter how much you investigate, you can't find any information about me from 15 years ago? When he said this, Chen Yi's body instantly overflowed with murderous aura. This is the first time today that he has murderous intent. Kaido, on the other hand, got up from the ground in an instant. You are indeed. Just when murderous intent appeared on Chen Yi, Enel's hair suddenly stood up on the other side of the island. He has felt this strong killing intent before. That was the first time he met Chen Yi. After being defeated by Chen Yi, he would rather die than surrender, but when he felt the real killing intent in Chen Yi, he immediately gave up. But now, this murderous intention was not directed at him at all, and he felt more dangerous than last time. Enel immediately realized that Kaido might have really pissed off Chen Yi. And Momosegi's face turned white at the moment when the murderous intention appeared. Although she already has the reputation of being an admiral among marines, there is still a big gap between her and the real admiral level. The most direct gap is in combat power. Although her combat power is very strong on the sea, it is still far from the highest combat power of marines like admiral. But she didn't expect that she would be unable to resist the killing intent released by Chen Yi. If this was during a battle, and the other party released such terrifying murderous intent, I am afraid that this moment of loss of consciousness would be enough for the other party to take her life. At this moment, Momosegi clenched his fists and finally realized how big the gap was between himself and Chen Yi. In other words, how big the gap is between her now and the Sea Emperor. The name of the Sea Emperor spread throughout the sea, but few people can see how powerful the Sea Emperor is. Many fledgling pirates will shamelessly target the 5 emperors and want to kill them to establish their own status. It can only be said that these little pirates really don't know how high the sky is and how high it is. Even if 10,000 of them combined were not enough to kill one Sea Emperor. The combat power of the Sea Emperor can only be described in one word. Absolutely terrifying. That's power that most people can't touch, and that's awesome that ordinary pirates can never imagine. It is precisely because of this that Chen Yi 2 years ago was able to make an opening on the ant's face and escape without a trace, which aroused the attention and surprise of the other 3 emperors. Whitebeard has known Chen Yi for a long time and knew that one day he would stand at this height, but he did not expect that this day would come so quickly. Chen Yi's growth rate far exceeded Whitebeard's expectations. The red-haired 4 emperors had already been in contact with Chen Yi and admired Chen Yi, but they also did not expect that Chen Yi would dare to have a conflict with the ant in such a short period of time. He also seriously injured Auntie. As for Kaido, naturally he pays more attention to Chen Yi. At this time, Kaido's heart injury had completely recovered, but there were 2 bowl-sized scars on his chest and back that could not be recovered. This is the second time Kaido has encountered an attack that left scars on his body, apart from the sword wound on his abdomen. Kaido stood up again and stared at Chen Yi across from him, with a flash of confusion in his eyes. Suddenly, it was because he finally guessed Chen Yi's possible true identity. It's complicated because Chen Yi, the 5th emperor, is actually. How could he not be complicated in his heart? The huge sea actually allowed such a person to become the emperor of the sea. After the previous battle, Kaido has determined that the guy in front of him is definitely worthy of being the emperor of the sea. Maybe 2 years ago, Chen Yi was still a little bit behind, but now, if he and Chen Yi really had to fight to the death, it was still unclear who would win. This terrifying growth rate, where did Marine get this guy from? Kaido also had huge doubts in his heart. If Chen Yi's identity is really what he guessed, then why did Marine do this? Why should such a genius appear in this sea in this way? Wouldn't it be better to train him to be the next Marine Marshal? If such an outstanding person died on the sea, let me ask you, Marine, if you feel sad. However, what Kaido couldn't have imagined was that Sengoku, who made this decision back then, didn't realize that Chen Yi would be so good. He would choose Chen Yi just because Chen Yi looks ordinary enough and has never been seen on the sea. Ordinary, inconspicuous among the crowd, is an important quality for an undercover agent. The most important thing is that his son is trustworthy. Who would have thought that as soon as Chen Yi came to this sea, he would immediately spread his wings like a rock and soar 90,000 miles. Ordinary. In this sea, ordinary people would have died long ago. You are indeed. Kaido opened his mouth, but before he could finish his sentence, he was forced to hold back what he wanted to say by the killing intent surging like a wave from Chen Yi's body. Chen Yi's figure has also disappeared. At this moment, all the hairs on Kaido's body stood up. Without any hesitation, Kaido used the power of the dragon fruit to transform himself into the form of a dragon. This time, if he doesn't change into a dragon, he might really die. In an instant, a huge creature appeared in the sky above Dressrosa. Dragon. This dragon is entrenched in the sky above Dressrosa, causing 1/3 of the entire island to be plunged into shadow. Although all the people in the kingdom of Dressrosa had already been trembling in the fierce battle, they were still completely confused when this dragon appeared. How could there be a dragon appearing in this place? The next second, people thought of the legend of the 5 emperors on the sea. The 5 emperors. Kaido is what you eat, the dragon fruit. At this moment, people finally knew what level of battle happened before Dressrosa. Emperor level. People were completely frightened. Some people tried to board the ship to escape from Dressrosa. Some people hid in their homes and shivered, but more people still prayed silently. In front of the power of the 5 emperors, ordinary people are too insignificant. Not even as good as an ant. Enel, who was sitting on the roof of a building in Dressrosa, looked at the huge dragon appearing in the sky, and his face turned pale for the first time. What the hell, isn't this cheating? Enel curled his lips. Cheating was a word he learned from Chen Yi, and it couldn't be more appropriate to use it here. Kaido, is he still a human? This creature. Enel looked at Kaido's endless figure in the sky, and a feeling of powerlessness emerged in his heart. If he were allowed to fight this guy, he would probably be beaten to death by Kaido in less than a minute. Momosegi's figure is already shaky. She can feel Kaido's terror more than ordinary people. But in her heart, she may be the most stable among everyone present. Because here, Chen Yi is here. But the next moment, Momosegi's eyes suddenly widened. The giant dragon that Kaido transformed into opened his mouth. Then the surrounding wind converged towards its mouth at a speed visible to the naked eye. The air in its mouth was infinitely compressed and turned into a blue air ball. The next second, Kaido lowered his head and spit out a pillar of blue air. The giant dragon breathes out, destroying the heaven and the earth. Not only that, Kaido also shook its big head crazily, and its breath swept across the land of Dressrosa, turning everything it went into scorched earth. The power of air compression, coupled with the power of Kaido Dragon, makes this breath extremely terrifying. The next moment, Momosegi's eyes widened suddenly, and Kaido's head was about to turn in the direction where they were. You must know that she is in Dressrosa now, and there are thousands of ordinary people here. However, Enel, who was sitting next to her, sighed softly. Enel's body instantly erupted with bright blue lightning. A huge thunder and lightning went straight towards Kaido's sweeping dragon's breath. Rumble, rumble, dragon's breath and lightning met in the sky above the kingdom of Redisrosa, and a huge roar broke out. The aftermath of the collision caused countless buildings in the kingdom to collapse instantly. Fortunately, the dragon's breath was blocked by Enel and did not fall into the crowd. Otherwise, no one will survive except Enel and Momoshiki. At this moment, even Kaido looked at Enel twice. He seems to be surprised that there are still people here who can resist his own dragon breath. But after seeing clearly that it was Enel, an inexplicable look flashed in Kaido's eyes. At this time, Chen Yi, who was already standing on the highest peak of Redrosa Island, almost eye level with Kaido, spoke calmly. Are you wondering why I want Enel to stay here? Although his strength is not bad, he cannot participate in a battle of our level. Having said this, Chen Yi smiled softly. Then let me show you the real usage of Enel. Enel, here comes the sword. Although Chen Yi's voice was not loud, Enel on the other side of the island still sighed. That's all I know. Enel shrugged, seeming helpless. The next moment, sparkling lightning emerged from Enel's body and connected to Chen Yi's hand. At this moment, a round arch bridge composed of thunder and lightning appeared on Redrosa Island. One is on Enel's side, and the other is in Chen Yi's hand. But immediately, the thunder light faded, and Enel's figure disappeared. Chen Yi has a heavy straight knife in his hand. This straight knife was completely composed of lightning, and it was still emitting arcs of electricity, and Chen Yi's body was also flashing with lightning. Like the god of thunder descending to earth. Seeing this scene, Kaido narrowed his eyes and a trace of confusion flashed across his face. What the hell is this operation? Today, slay the dragon. Chen Yi held the Enel knife and jumped into the sky. Following Chen Yi's command, Enel turned into a lightning sword and appeared in Chen Yi's hand. This scene left Kaido stunned. He never thought that the elemental devil fruit could be used like this. No, it's the elemental demon fruit power, and it can still be used like this. Ever since Chen Yi took hold of the long knife transformed by Enel, the feeling of crisis in Kaido's heart became more and more intense. Chen Yi, holding the knife, became even more terrifying. Today, I will kill you, the dragon of the 5 emperors. Chen Yi held the knife and jumped towards Kaido. At this time, on the battlefield between Hawkeye and Flame Calamity Jin became even more miserable. However, his mood had some changes. Before, he thought that he would die in the hands of Hawkeye today. But now, his observation Haki sensed a marine warship coming rapidly towards here from a distance. Marine. As long as he attracts the attention of this marine battleship, he may really survive this time. Being caught by marine is much better than dying in the hands of Hawkeye. He doesn't want to die. In this way, Jin endured Hawkeye's sword test and waited patiently for the marine battleship to approach. The marine battleship is extremely fast, and it is Vice Admiral Crane who is chasing Doflamingo. Dover shifted. Crane Vice Admiral standing on the deck frowned. Over the years, she had chased Doflamingo so many times, and this guy rarely turned corners when escaping. Crane Vice Admiral vaguely felt something was wrong. But at this time, the deputy standing behind Vice Admiral Crane suddenly spoke. Crane Vice Admiral, did you hear anything? The deputy's face changed slightly and he looked around, a little confused. He seemed to hear someone shouting, "Help!" After hearing this, Vice Admiral Crane listened carefully, and sure enough he heard some slight sounds. It seems to be coming from a relatively distant place. Crane Vice Admiral quickly focused on a small island in his sight. This island is very ordinary and inconspicuous, but Crane Vice Admiral still spread his terrifying observation Haki over it in an instant. The next second, Crane Vice Admiral's expression became distorted. The deputy was shocked. In all these years, he had never seen such a twisted and weird expression on Vice Admiral Crane's face. Wait, the deputy keenly noticed that the corners of Vice Admiral's mouth were slightly raised. Crane Vice Admiral is suppressing a laugh. The deputy was confused. What did the Vice Admiral find? He was very curious, but he was not as awesome as Haki, so he could only look at Vice Admiral with curious eyes. However, Vice Admiral he had no intention of explaining anything to him. He waved his hand and said, Doflamingo is running this way, let's continue chasing him. Wow. With the sails fluttering, Vice Admiral's marine battleship changed direction and chased Doflamingo. It was getting further and further away from the island where Jin and Hawkeye were. This scene makes my eyes tear open. The only life-saving straw is gone. He risked death on the spot and shouted for help several times, but not even a single marine heard him. Jin's heart was completely broken. However, he never expected that Vice Admiral he heard his cry for help clearly. I also used observation hockey to see his miserable appearance. Crane Vice Admiral just couldn't be bothered to pay attention. That's almost it. Take my sword, and if you're not dead yet, you can live on. Hawkeye seemed to finally be happy and said calmly. Jin's forehead suddenly became covered with cold sweat. How could he take it? With such a look full of murderous intent, he had no intention of letting him go. Jin went crazy and instantly transformed into a pterosaur and flew into the sky. Although Hawkeye had said that if he dared to transform again, he would kill him with one strike, but at this juncture, waiting for death would be the most stupid thing. The pterosaur transformed by Jin was also very fast and rushed out of the island in an instant. Hawkeye, who was still on the island, shook his head. The knife in his hand was pointed straight in the direction of Jin, and he stabbed it gently. The fire disaster that had escaped a long distance exploded into a bloody firework in the sky at this moment. The Five Emperors Kaido's banner, the fire disaster with the highest bounty among the three disasters, was killed by the Eagle Eye's sword today. Eagle Eye's eyes were bright, and he could clearly feel that his swordsmanship had taken a further step forward today. Drought and epidemic, driving the pirate ship, rushed towards the previously agreed place like crazy. There is their big brother Yan Disaster. A man with a bounty of nearly 2 billion. The three brothers join forces and can definitely kill Fujitora who is chasing after him. We're here. I saw that small island. Drought suddenly became excited and pointed at the dark shadow at the end of his field of vision and said. Plague suddenly turned into a Brachiosaurus, stretched his neck to take a closer look, and was extremely excited. Yes, this is the island. Jin is waiting there. The plague can't wait to reach the island immediately. But at this moment, the two people were stunned at the same time. They saw that the fire disaster flew out from the small island. He seemed quite anxious. It's brother Yanbon. Hanbon pointed at the figure in the sky and smiled happily. It's him. Plague was no longer so excited. Looking at Jin's figure, he felt something was wrong. Why do you feel a little embarrassed? Brother. Drought waved his hands happily. Before he finished speaking, his voice stopped suddenly. Because Jin exploded. Just like that, it exploded into mud in the sight of Drought and Epidemic. Too suddenly, the smiles on Drought and Epidemic's faces didn't have time to fade away, and they all froze on their faces. While their smiles were stiff, their eyes also popped out. That's their eldest brother, the strongest among the three disasters. The bounty is approaching 2 billion. Why did it explode? This scene had a huge psychological impact on them. Even unprecedented. This is their life-saving straw. Fujitora behind is about to catch up. Die earlier than them. Fujitora, who was chasing Drought and Epidemics, also saw the explosion of fire disasters through his own eyes. After being speechless for 2 seconds, Fujitora shook his head, took out the piece of paper from his pocket, and accurately crossed out Jin's name. Sengoku taught Chen Yi the 8-man roster, and Jin became the first one to be crossed off. In terms of strength, Jin is definitely not the weakest among them. But in terms of luck, he is really not that good. Fujitora put away the note, looked at the pirate ship not far ahead, and showed a satisfied smile. Jin is already dead. Can these two people be far away? You are not alone on the road to hell, your family will send you off neatly. By killing these two more, the target of 3 people given by Chen Yi would be more than half achieved. However, Fujitora is also slightly regretful. If the 3 disasters can be reconciled, then all his targets will be achieved this time. I don't know who it was, but it was the guy who killed Yanbon before I could. Fujitora muttered. Fujitora said this easily, but if other people on the sea heard it, their jaws would hit the bottom of the sea. That is a person at the level of an emperor and deputy, the strongest person in the sea second only to the 5 emperors. How come you think it is as easy to kill a pirate of this level as an ordinary person? However, Fujitora has the confidence to say this. Fujitora's true strength is that he can compete head-on with the 5 emperors for several minutes without falling behind. Of course, if the fight continues, Fujitora may not be able to hold on. But it's enough to prove Fujitora's terrifying strength. At this moment, on the small island ahead, a figure walked onto the coast, making the 3 people chasing him stunned for a moment. Hawkeye, Drought and Epidemic both widened their eyes, and instantly realized that this man was probably the culprit who destroyed his elder brother, Yan. Fujitora was also a little surprised that Chen Yi actually called Eagle Eye. When did this guy Eagle Eye interact with Chen Yi? However, no matter how many thoughts they had in their minds, they did not affect the actions of Drought and Epidemic. After Hawkeye appeared, they immediately turned the rudder suddenly and tried to escape sideways. With Hawkeye in the front and Fujitora in the back, you can only escape from the side. However, it seems that Hawkeye has no intention of letting them go. He had already put the knife back into its scabbard and hung it around his neck, but he pulled it out again. There was still a distance of 2 or 3 miles, so he slashed at the pirate ship. The small knife and Hawkeye's slightly exaggerated movements make him look a bit funny overall. But no one dared to laugh at him. The pirate ship was cut in half due to Drought and Epidemic. The cut was smooth, and even after Hawkeye made the cut, the ship sailed forward normally for a few seconds. Then it faded away, sunk below the surface of the water. By the time the Drought and Epidemic came to their senses, both of them were already half submerged in the sea water, unable to struggle. As demon fruit power, sea water is their biggest nemesis in this world. No, with the final cry, Plague and Drought disappeared beneath the water. Fujitora sighed softly after seeing the whole process. Now, these 2 indicators have also been taken away by Hawkeye. A few minutes later, Fujitora's boat finally docked. Let me ask, how many targets did Chen Yi give you? If you want to kill all 3 of them, which one should I kill? Fujitora asked dully. Hawkeye glanced at him, as if he didn't understand what Fujitora was talking about. Chen Yi said, let me guard this island. Eagle Eye said, these 2 people can be considered as entering the range of the island, and they are mine. As for the indicators, Chen Yi didn't say anything. Fujitora looked up to the sky and sighed. There were only 8 people on the list. Hawkeye killed 3 of them alone. He had to kill more than half of the remaining 5 people. Alas, Fujitora shook his head. Who makes Hawkeye's attack range so much farther than his own? If nothing else happens, no one from Kaido will come here again. Your mission should have been completed. However, if such a powerful demon fruit power is sunk into the bottom of the sea, although it can make them unable to move, it does not necessarily mean they will die. Fujitora said seriously. If someone rescues them, maybe both of them can survive. Hearing this, Hawkeye nodded. I will stay here for a month. Hawkeye said. Although he didn't know whether demon fruit power could survive for such a long time while sinking into the sea, since Fujitora said this, it was probably true. Fujitora is not a liar. Seeing this, Fujitora said nothing more and prepared to go to Redrosa Island. There is the gathering place designated by Chen Yi after the mission is completed. As for Doflamingo, Fujitora has no plans to participate. It would be difficult for a pirate of his level not to avoid conflict when meeting a Marine Vice Admiral. With Crane Vice Admiral and Luo lurking in the dark, it would be impossible for Doflamingo to escape. Although Luo's plan to close Doflamingo's net this time had many shortcomings, Chen Yi's additions can be said to be a stroke of genius. Letting Hawkeye guard this island has played an incomparable role. It can be said that the destruction of the 3 disasters is inseparable from Chen Yi's layout. Even when he went to the island where Luo and Dover fought to guard against possible new enemies, it was Chen Yi's arrangement. It seems that Chen Yi has anticipated all possibilities and is prepared to deal with them. But at this moment, Hawkeye's words made Fujitora freeze. 3 disasters are over. I don't know if Kaido will arrive this time. That guy is no weaker than Auntie. Chen Yi, can you handle it? Hearing this, Fujitora turned sharply in the direction of Redrosa, frowning. Yes, will that guy Kaido come? Or is he already here? Fujitora's figure disappeared instantly. A curtain of water immediately rose on the sea, stretching for several nautical miles. It was the waves caused by Fujitora's hurried pass over the sea. In an instant, if the power of the gravity fruit is used to travel a few miles, it will explode at a speed beyond everyone's expectations. Chenyi might face Kaido alone, which made Fujitora panic for the first time. Please like and subscribe my channel.